Of Studying Cinema with Cozy. I'm your host, Jamal Hollywood, and on the last day of Black History Month, we're going to be talking about one of Eddie Murphy's better movies, one of Martin Lawrence's better movies. It's one of my favorite movies personally, probably in my top 5 movies of all time, and that movie is Life. So, Life is about, two people who meet each other in the beginning through their own, shiesty ways of doing business, and basically get caught up having to go on a run to sell some liquor. And during that run, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence are, growing a bond through, their trip. And once they get to their location and exchange the money for the liquor and everything, Claude, who is Martin Lawrence's character, wants to just hijack back to, where they came from, handle their business and go on about their day. But Ray, Eddie Murphy's character, he has different plans in mind. He wants to go celebrate a little bit, have a good time, let loose a little bit. And in the midst of all of that, both Claude and Ray get finessed. Claude gets finessed by a lady at the bar. Ray gets finessed by a couple of guys playing, poker at the table. So that's how that go. Now they're strapped with no money. And the guy that ended up finessing Ray at the bar, playing these shiesty games or whatnot, I think his name was Mr. Hitchcock in the film. He ends up getting killed by a police officer in town because, whatever Mr. Hitchcock had done in the past came up to bite him in the end. The officer ended up killing Mr. Hitchcock, and on top of that, put his body in a place where, whoever came across it would be the one to get the blame for it. Ray and Claude end up walking past where the body would end up falling out from, and hillbillies come from out of nowhere and basically accuse them of killing Mr. Hitchcock, and now they're in jail, sent off to Mississippi State Prison, and now we're in the midst of the world that life brings us. So, with that being said, we meet a lot of characters in the film, played by different black all-stars, Bernie Mac, Anthony Anderson, a bunch of different stars that kind of come together and make this film what it is. It's very special to see all of these different actors and comedians bounce off of each other and kind of show their chemistry that they have with one another in this film. Throughout the film, especially in the beginning, Claude and Ray are trying to, escape or find a way to get out, whether it be through lawyers, running away, or, conspiring any type of plan that could get them out of prison for something that they know they did not do. Being a black man in the 30s during this era, it was hard to kind of feel justified and to kind of, to get your just due as a human being. People were accused of things that they did not do, and for that reason spent their life in prison, which is what the story in this movie is trying to tell. Whether they be falsely accused or rightfully accused, these are everyday human beings or who are experiencing life behind bars. And at this point in time, right off of the, sharecropping era, these guys are doing a lot of manual labor, digging ditches, building infrastructure. So it's a lot of hard work stemming from, the slave route. You mix the slave roots with the incarceration, there's, nothing but torment to the mind at that point. So these characters are kind of just, moving within their reality, making just do with what they have. And it's crazy to see how, even though that these characters are spending their life behind bars and incarcerated, they still find ways to make joy out of certain situations that they have, whether it be, playing baseball, joking around. They try to make the best out of their situation, no matter how bad it gets. Claude and Ray, they spend majority of the film, like I said, trying to escape and trying to find a way out of prison rather. And they never have the thought that they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison until it gets to a certain point in the film where they just settle on the fact that they might, not ever see light of day. So throughout the film, there are a bunch of different lessons to be learned here, a bunch of different lessons through jokes and through certain situations that may be, not necessarily traumatizing, but just, played for the dramatics. There's a lot that deals with friendship, trust, growing a bond with somebody that you really have to put your trust in, and really just staying with a positive mindset and not succumbing to the negative that is around you. Claude has a hard time adjusting to the fact that he is incarcerated at this point. And, Ray, he's adjusting, at his pace as well. But Claude is the one that's kind of more in distraught and the one that's like, we have to get out of here. He, conspires a way to kind of get out of prison by, contacting a lawyer, and his wife back home tries to handle the business on her end, and it doesn't fall through. He did not get what he was looking for as far as an appeal, and his wife ended up leaving him for the lawyer. It's the way of life, I guess. And now Ray and Claude, try to come up with a plan to escape on feet and try to run away from the prison in the middle of the night. And like the movie said, it wouldn't be the first night that they had done this. So it would be multiple occasions where they would try to get away, and we either fail because they didn't get far enough, or the dogs caught up with them, or they didn't know the area. It was really resembling of slaves running away from their slave master. And even though this is taking place in the 1930s, and black people are ahead in terms of finally getting their feet under them to a certain degree, this movie shows Claude and Ray in the beginning in New York, living in a lifestyle that is fast paced. You feel me? They're kind of free to do and hustle however they please until they get caught up in the South and have to deal with the, suppression that they are dealing with, incarcerated and dealing with slave-like, activities. So I feel like this film is very informal and very educational. It's one of the more enjoyable films, from, I guess, the late 90s, early 2000s era. Overall, I feel like this is probably one of the more put together films from that era, especially with it being a black film and it being able to have a bunch of black stars in it. And even though the situation in the film isn't one of the best situations, being that everyone is locked up in prison, like I said, the movie does shine light on but seeing the positive and the negative and trying to keep the positive energy within you to see your way through the situation. All of the characters in this film, like I said, they bounce off each other perfect. Bernie Mac's character is one of the funniest characters in the film. Biscuit, his character has a certain arc that makes you kind of reflect on, the time that they were living in and the time that we are living in today, being that he was a gay man in prison, and his situation throughout the film kind of, eradicated once he found out that he would be going back home within a week. He was basically afraid for his mother and his family to see him the way that he was, being a full gay man. So he ended up, crossing the line that they were not supposed to cross. In the film, they established that there is a line that the prisoners are not supposed to cross, and if they do cross it, they will shoot them and kill them. So Biscuit, on this day decides to, cross that line and basically does a form of suicide by doing this. He gets shot, he dies. It's a very emotional scene because Bernie Mac, it's insinuated that Bernie Mac and Biscuit are lovers within this prison. So to see Bernie Mac have that joy and that, erratic behavior kind of just erased for that one split second, for him to, shake everybody off and not really care about crossing the line because he just wants to carry Biscuit body back to the site to pay, true respects by giving him a burial and everything. It shows a lot about, the relationships that were in this film within this prison. Even though a lot of these characters went to prison for bad things, whether it be killing somebody or things of that nature, there was a certain level of humanity within all of these characters that, revealed itself throughout the film. A lot of these black men stood together throughout their situations, defended one another and made sure that the next brother was, taken care of, even though that they were all, going through these hard situations. Like I said, they try to see the positive side through the negative and try to just keep on moving with life as life keeps, rolling punches on them. The biggest lesson I learned from this film is to, be appreciative of the situation that you're in right now. Claude and Ray were in a situation where they were, like I said, hustling, moving fast, living the life in New York. And then within 24 hours, they're locked up, sent to prison, and their life is over at that point. They spend majority of their life in prison, trying to find ways to get out until they grow old together. And they see everybody around them, pass on and perish. It's a very emotional film, because at the end of the day, you look back and you see how Claude and Ray, they were just everyday people in New York. And then, kind of like in 12 Years a Slave, they just, in a blink of an eye, end up in the South and now end up in a worse situation that they really can't, see their way out of, no matter how many times they run away, no matter how many plans they form. It just seems like life is content on keeping them here. And maybe it was to learn a lesson, or, for them to kind of like look within themselves to a certain degree. But, sometimes life just rolls in a way that creates unfortunate events for certain people, and they just have to accept it and move on and keep trucking. And that, I feel like that is the personality of Ray, and the personality of Claude is the one that is in denial with the situation that they are facing in the moment. In the beginning, Claude didn't want to have to take that trip to the South to hustle that liquor. And he didn't want to live in the moment after that situation was handled and they went to the bar. And even when they got locked up in prison, he didn't really care for Ray being a part of his appeal. He just was worried about himself and, seeing his way out of the situation, whichever way he could. And whether that meant, abandoning certain people or just being more selfish, he wanted to do that. Ray was not more so content with his situation, but he knew, like, this is where I'm at right now, and I have to plan accordingly to get to where I need to get to. Everything, whether it be a stressful situation or a situation that could be easily handled, was thoroughly thought out by Ray. There are a bunch of scenes in this film where, Ray and Claude, they have opposing views on things, and it's very telling to their relationship, because their opposing views and their lifestyle and everything, it caused them to be in this situation together, and that is the only way that they can get out of this situation together. By the end of the film, you see that Ray and Claude plan to have the retirement home. Now that they have grown old, they have, been transferred to a, retirement prison home, I guess. So Ray and Claude, they form a plan. And at this point, Claude is the one that forms the plan to, for them to escape and successfully escape, And I think that moment right there was a realization within Claude, as far as just understanding the situation that he was in, fully analyzing, everything around him. They had been through a lot with, Mr. Hancock, whatever his name was in the beginning, and also dealing with the police officer who killed him, coming back around to the end of the movie, and being held responsible for the fact that he basically had Claude and Ray put in prison for something they did not do, something for something that he did. I feel like this movie, when it all ends and with the credits roll, you see the full circle of everything, all of the stories and the themes of the film that were trying to be told. It all comes back around full circle. I think that the writing in this film is superb, to the point where, like I said, everybody bounces off of each other perfectly. The guards in the prison, the characters that are prisoners, the people that play in the third act of the film, as far as, Claude and Ray being older, everybody around them, all of the energy put into this film made it what it was and made it a classic. I feel like it's more of a classic than movies like Friday or Boys in the Hood to a certain degree because of the star power and because of the simple yet impactful story that it tells. It's one of those movies that you could watch over and over again. You could find different things that can make you laugh, and you could learn different lessons within the film just because of, you know, all of the situations and ripple effects that get shown throughout this film, you know. And within this film, you see how, you know, one has to have another one's back in order for certain situations to, you know, come to an end. There had to be a certain level of trust between Ray and Clark for them to pull off that plan at the end. And within the film, there are certain scenes that kind of show where Ray and Clark drift apart, and then they have to come back together. And it's because Ray, no matter what hardships him and Claude go through, he would never turn his back on Claude as far as, you know, killing him dead or, you know, doing things that would bring Claude to a lower level than where he's already at. And because of that, that relationship and that level of care that is still there causes them to, you know, rekindle their relationship within the film after having a fallout. One of the best scenes in this film for me is when Ray is in his bunk with everybody else, you know, around him, and, you know, they start to ask him about his boom boom room that he was gassing up early in the film. And he goes on to tell, you know, a little narrative about, you know, the boom boom room and the vibe, and he basically paints a picture for everybody in, you know, the prison with him. And it shows the humanity side of everything, like I said before, about how no matter how hard life got on them, no matter the fact that all of them were spending their life in prison in Mississippi doing slave labor, you know, getting heckled by, you know, the white man, getting heckled by a black man who works under this white man, as if it really were slave times. You know, they still find ways to, you know, laugh, enjoy their time together, and kind of like paint pictures for themselves that kind of put them in a better place. You know, at the end of the day, you know, all of them just wanted to be free. And in that moment, it showed them being free, you know, within their own mind, but them being free within their mind was enough for them in that moment for them to feel happy and to feel joy. You know, it brought them together closer as a, you know, as comrades, you feel me? And it did justice to how important the relationships that were established in the film are. And it did justice to, you know, the character development, seeing how like certain characters react off of each other and things of that nature. We go from that to, you know, one of the new prisoners in the film, Can't Get Right, who doesn't speak, you know, played by Bokeem Woodbine, another black all-star, you feel me? And his story is that, you know, he has a hidden talent. The prisoners, you know, they get together and play baseball every now and then, and, you know, Can't Get Right ends up being one of their better players, even though he cannot speak. You know, he's a mute basically. He ends up being one of the better players, you know, on a consistent basis, to the point where he gets notoriety from the Negro League, you know, to play baseball professionally. And, you know, Claude and Ray, they look at this as a way out, being that they were the ones to communicate with Can't Get Right and to get him, you know, to the level of, you know, skill that he's at. So they have the conversation with the manager as far as, you know, them having the opportunity to potentially get out of prison, and to come to find out that that was never an option in the long run. You know, they just wanted Can't Get Right to play in the Negro League, and that was it, and left everybody else behind. And I feel like that's another test to how society, you know, works as a whole. You know, at the end of the day, you know, certain people, I mean, at the end of the day, for black people, a lot of people just, at the end of the day, for black people, there are situations that we are put in to showcase that at the end of the day that you are just a nigga in everyone else's eyes, until you expose a talent that others can take advantage of. And Can't Get Right was the definition of that, being a black man that couldn't speak for himself, literally. He was just another black man that went to prison. His only way out was through his talent in a sport that would still cause him to be controlled by the white man to a certain degree. And honestly, we don't know to what degree, being that, you know, he couldn't speak for himself, literally. It doesn't matter. Like I said, they still view you as just a nigga, no matter how much work you put in, you know, no matter how much of a good Samaritan you are. You know, Claude and Ray spent hours trying to get his game right, and, you know, try to work their way out of their situation by being honest people, you know, by just, you know, working hard, staying diligent with the path that Can't Get Right was on, and being hopeful that this would lead them to better days. But unfulfilled promises, you know, from the white man, you know, turned that situation down. One thing I forgot to mention about Can't Get Right was the storyline with him and, you know, the white lady getting her pregnant and everything. So basically the situation is one of the neighboring, you know, big houses that basically used to be a slave house. The owner of that house, which in actuality I think is the owner of the prison, his daughter ends up getting pregnant by Can't Get Right. And what makes this situation funny is the fact that Can't Get Right, you know, he can't speak, you know, he's a mute, and basically shows a form of autism in that sense. And even with all of that being said, the white woman still, you know, slept with him and everything. So the father finds out that after the baby is born that, you know, there's a black father out somewhere. He assumes that it's one of the prisoners that got his daughter pregnant. He ends up trying to figure out who is responsible for getting his daughter pregnant. And this is another scene where the camaraderie between the brothers in the prison is shown, where, you know, he's going one by one, seeing whose face is similar to the baby's face. And, you know, one by one, these prisoners start to say that I'm the father, I'm the baby's daddy, this and that, until it gets to a point where, you know, you can't really decide who is the baby father because no one's going to fold. And, you know, it just causes basically the man and his daughter and that little boy to basically leave town and to never be seen again. But it's a big contribution to the fact that, you know, the level of attraction between, you know, white and black, and also the level of disconnect that there is between us, you know, being that, you know, two different statuses as far as class, economics, and things of that nature. The way that white people may look down on black people as being beneath them and not wanting anything to do with them causes them fear when they find out one of their own, you know, is impregnated or has a, you know, baby by, you know, somebody of that race. And after that, that's when Claude and Ray basically, well, more so Claude, gives up on the situation. You know, Ray, like I said, he is the character that understands the situation that he's in right now and still tries to, you know, continuously plan or, you know, think things through to make his situation better. Claude is one of those people that is faced with a situation and he either panics or he crashes out. So with that being said, this is where he crashes out and just gives up and just really becomes content with his situation for years on end. And then we see him grow old along with Ray, you know, trying to escape in different ways. Never works. But one day, you know, Claude has another breaking point, which is, you know, the white pies. As you guys may know, if you've seen the film, in the beginning of the film, when they're on their way to the South, they stop at a bakery where, you know, it only serves whites only. So with it only serving white people, Claude, you know, ignorant to this fact, he kind of is just persistent with the fact that he wants something to eat and he wants a pie, you feel me, even though they're white only pies. At the end of it, you know, they get turned down from the, you know, bakery and get told to, you know, walk away. They do so. And that whole thing comes back around in the end when Claude sees one of the ladies in the surrounding houses put out her pies to cool down on the windowsill, and he smells this scent and it brings him back to that exact moment. And being that he has grown old in this prison, you know, he has seen different traumatizing things and he is past his breaking point. He makes a run past the gun line, you know, and tries to go after the pie. He gets the pie, he eats the pie, and then he's put in a situation where he has to stand on bottles for hours on end. One of the guards gives Ray an opportunity to be free if he ends up killing Claude. And this is where I say, Ray always had a level of care for Claude, because he did not take this offer. And he ended up, standing on the bottles with Claude and being right there next to him like he was in the beginning of the film throughout all of the hardships and, trials and tribulations. After that, we see them get transferred over to the, wellness center for, the older prisoners. And we see them, make their last escape, which would be burning the building down and, using the bodies from the morgue to replace their bodies so that people think that they got burnt to ashes. And then they make their escape, end up watching a baseball game in the major leagues, free as can be, and at the end of the movie, you just think like, damn, this is how their life went. And that's why the title of the movie just being Life is kind of impactful as well, because it really makes you look back on life within the film, your own life, and just how grateful we are for certain things, to how ungrateful we are for certain things, and how we just need to be more appreciative of the situations that we're in right now. Be more appreciative of, all of the good opportunities that we receive, day in and day out. Being able to wake up and be free, as a black man is a blessing. You feel me? A lot of black men and women get incarcerated for things that they do not do. You feel me? Falsely accused and just put through traumatizing situations in result of that. So it is nice to see a film that speaks on that in a way that is entertaining. It makes you laugh. It makes you think. It makes you reflect. And with all of that being said, on top of having the all-star cast, it makes it one of the better films for me personally within black cinema. And I feel like there not necessarily needs to be a remake, but there needs to be another movie to this caliber with, black actors or black comedians that will fit the bill to make something like this come to light and to tell a story that, is real, simple, yet impactful. A lot of lessons to be learned in this film, a lot of different, themes within the film, friendship, trust, just believing and having faith and camaraderie. A lot of those things play a part in this film, and it makes it what it is. It really does make it what it is. But if you guys want to check out the film, make sure you do. Like I said, it's probably one of the better films that Eddie Murphy and Martin, have, acted in. And I feel like it's one of the better films from that generation, from that era. Definitely in my top 5 films of all time. And it's a movie that I could cut on and watch and just enjoy and laugh, genuinely laugh at. It's a lot of good moments in this film that just makes you feel good, It's a feel-good movie with a lot of quick-witted, on-point comedy. Nothing is overdone in this film. You feel me? Everything is balanced out perfectly. The dramatics, the comedy, the way the actors, the lines, everything is perfectly, put in place to make this film what it is. And it will forever be one of my favorite films. I hope you guys get to tune into that one. And I hope you guys enjoyed this past month, Black History Month. Made the most of it, like I said. We've been focusing on black films this past month, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop here. We're going to keep focusing on different black films as much as we can. We're going to be focusing on, a bunch of different aspects of film, TV, you feel me? We might even dive into music to a certain degree. So it's going to be different things, different art forms that will be, studied within this series. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you guys continue to tune in, subscribe, like, comment on the video. Let me know what you guys think about the movie Life. And I hope to see you on the next one. You feel me? Shout out to everybody who's been supporting the brand. Remember, continue on living cozy. And I'll catch you on the next one.